everybody. My name is Rosaline. I am the Director of Research and Impact with the Office of Adult Education here at the Technical College System of Georgia. My role is I work with all of our adult education programs in the state with all of their research and data needs. And today I'm going to be talking to you all about Georgia's high school equivalency options because there have been some changes. And so I'll be doing a broad overview of what those changes have been. So I want to start out by just giving some general context. So as I mentioned, TCSG now offers multiple options in addition to just the GED for Georgians to obtain a high school equivalency credential to accommodate all adult learner needs. So high school equivalency credentials are essentially the alternative option for adults who may not have earned their high school diploma in high school. And so they're called high school equivalency credentials. Prior to 2020, Georgia was one of 18 states in the country to offer only the GED as a pathway to a high school equivalency. So we all have gotten very used to just calling a high school equivalency the GED because here in Georgia, that was the only way to do it for the longest time. But really, the GED is just a type of a high school equivalency credential. So we're all very used to just using the term GED when really what we mean to say is high school equivalency. So oftentimes you may say, come to classes to get your GED, go talk to the GED office, I need to get my GED. It's just common language. But right now that we have multiple options in the state, I wanted to start off by just having this conversation about what a high school equivalency is, because now it's not only just the GED in Georgia, we have other options. So we're trying to get people used to shifting this language a little bit to talking about high school equivalency in general, as opposed to just the GED. So this diagram gives you an overview of the current high school equivalency options that we now have in Georgia. There are now 3 options to earn your high school equivalency in the state. So of course, we do still offer the GED test, which has been around for a very long time and is what all of you are probably familiar with. We now offer another test that's called the HSET exam, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about that in this presentation. We also have a third option that's currently in pilot mode, so you may or may not have heard of this option. It's called Career Plus HSE. I'm not going to go into too much detail about Career Plus today, but if you do have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me about it. But this is essentially a third option that provides a pathway that's not just a test. It involves taking courses and enrolling in post-secondary as well to try to earn your high school equivalency. At the bottom of this slide, you will see the URL to our adult education website. And so if you go to this specific page on our website, it's titled Georgia High School Equivalency Options. You will see this diagram and additional information about all 3 of these options if you're interested in learning more. But again, for today, I'm going to be specifically focusing on the test-based options in Georgia, which are the GED test or the HSET exam. So like I said, for test-based options, it's no longer just the GED. We now have 2 test options in the state of Georgia to earn your high school equivalency. We have the GED test and the HSET exam. You may not have heard of the HSET exam before, or maybe you have. The best way to think about it is to compare these 2 tests very similar to the way that we think about the SAT and the ACT for high school students. They're very similar tests that are trying to accomplish the exact same thing, but the tests are just structured in different ways and the content might be slightly different, but they're still trying to measure the same types of things. So with the GED and the HSET, both of these tests are now available to all Georgians, and they both have online and in-person options available. So you'll see there actually are a lot of similarities between these 2 tests as I get into the details. And also, all of our adult education programs in the state of Georgia are prepared to help students prepare for either test option. So you're going to see a lot of our adult education programs now talking about how we can help you prepare for the GED test or the HSET exam. And you're going to start seeing GED and HSET together a lot more often now that both options are available in the state. Just for a little bit of national context in terms of the nationwide availability for both of these, we wanted to provide this information just so you get a sense of which states are offering which tests. A lot of states are offering both. So the GED is in that first box, and you can see all the states that offer the GED. And then the second box in the HSET, now you'll see Georgia is listed in combination with some of the other states that are also offering HSET. Uniquely, Tennessee, which is one of our neighbors, as you all know, they offer only the HSET. They stopped offering the GED. So it's just really interesting to think about this national context and kind of where Georgia fits in the bigger picture. So I'm going to be going through the similarities and the differences between the two tests. These graphics are pulled from, it's actually a one-pager that our office has developed. And so you're going to have access to that one-pager too. It's also available on our website, but I'm going to be going through the specific points in this one-pager to kind of give you an overview of the differences between the HSET and the GED. So like I said, there are a lot of similarities between the two tests. They both are offered in a computer-based format. They both have in-person and at-home testing available, which means that you can go to one of our testing centers that are currently open to take the test, or you can schedule to take either test from the comfort of your own home. All you need is an internet connection and a computer with a camera. And I'm going to go into more of those details later on as well. With both the HSET and the GED, you can take one subject at a time. So they both are comprised of different subject tests. And so you don't have to go and take all of them at once. I'm sure you guys can remember the days taking like the SAT and ACT and having to go take a 5-hour test. You do not have to do that with the HSET and the GED. You can go and just take math one day, and then you can prepare for another subject and take it a month, 2 months later, whatever works best for one's timeline. Both tests are also available in both English or Spanish. But one of the key differences between the HSET and the GED is the number of subject tests that are available. So with the GED that we're all familiar with, there have always been 4 subject tests available. You have the language arts, math, science, and social studies. With the HSET, there are now 5 subjects with that test. So they actually split up their language arts into a reading test and a writing test that are administered separately. And then you still have the math, the science, and the social studies. So that's one big difference with HSET, is that instead of having to pass 4 tests like the GED, you have to now pass 5 subject tests just because of the way it's structured. But if you look at the breakdown in the time that's required for each of these subject tests, it amounts to about the same total time of overall testing. I think it's around like 7 hours or something by the time you finish all of those subject tests. Holistically, it's pretty similar in terms of the amount of time the test would require, but just the number of tests you would have to take. For HSET, it's 5. For GED, it's 4. And again, you can take those subjects one at a time. You don't have to do it all at once. The other really big difference between the HSET and the GED is that the HSET is a multiple choice only test. With the exception of the written essay, which is part of the writing test, all the other questions on the HSET are multiple choice questions. For the GED has multiple choice questions, but the GED also has other types of questions. So they have, since it is a computer-based test, they have other formats like dragging and dropping for a question, filling in the blank, selecting an area, using your mouse to select an area on the screen, selecting from a drop-down, and then of course they also have a written essay. So there's a lot of different question types for the GED, whereas the HSET is multiple choice only. And so this is a big thing to have to consider when you're thinking from the test taker's perspective. They now have the option of taking into consideration what type of test do I think is going to best suit my strengths. And so some test takers prefer multiple choice tests. Some test takers prefer other types of questions on a test. And so that's something that now Georgians have the option to take into account when they're trying to choose between the HSET or the GED. So that's a really big difference between the two tests to make sure that you're aware of. Another similarity is that, of course, as I mentioned earlier, all of our adult education classes are prepared to offer free preparation support for either the HSET or the GED. And so if somebody is looking to get some support before taking either of these exams, they can, of course, enroll in our free adult education classes. Some additional details about both tests, and these are getting really into the nitty-gritty, and so I'll kind of do an overview of these, but just know that all of this information is in the one-pager, so you will have access to it. You certainly don't need to try to remember this. You're probably used to the GED. The passing score has always been a 145 minimum score out of a possible 200 on each of the 4 subjects. The passing score for the HSET, it's a completely different scoring system. So for the HSET, each of their subtests are scored out of 20, and you have to earn a score of 8 out of 20, and then 2 out of 6 on the essay, and your total scale score needs to be out of 45. You may be wondering, HSET has 5 subtests. I've mentioned that before, and you have to score an 8 out of 20 on each of the subtests. 8 times 5 is 40, but the total skill score needs to be 45. That is a component that HSET has embedded into their scoring system. So they want to have a minimum scale score for each of their subtests, but they also want, when you combine all of your subtest scores together, to have somewhat of a little higher expectation in terms of you should have done better on at least some of your subject tests to give you a total scale score of 45 when you combine them all together. So I just wanted to kind of explain that. I know if you're trying to do the math, you might be wondering why the numbers work out that way, but that was the intent behind it from the test developers. When it comes to retest, there are, of course, retest options for both tests. This gives you a lot of detail. So for GED, candidates can take each subject area test 3 times without any waiting period. But then after the 3rd attempt, the candidate must wait 60 days before they can attempt the test again. And then there's retest fees. So for the GED, the first 2 retests are $20 if it's taken within 1 calendar year. And then any additional retest after that will be $40. If you're taking the online GED, all the retests are $40. For the HSET candidates can take each subject area test 3 times within a calendar year. You must wait 14 days between test results before you can attempt the subject test again. The retest prices are $16 each if it's taken within 1 calendar year, and then $25.50 for the HSET at home, which is the online version of that test. But there are definitely retest options available to students. And then the other big difference between these 2 tests is the cost. So when you're looking at the full battery fee, I'm going to talk about the prices when you're taking the test in person. So at one of our testing centers across the state of Georgia. So for the GED, people are typically used to subject area tests costing $40 each. And then of course we gave the retest cost, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And then the online GED test is the same price. It's also $40 per subject. So for the GED, when you're talking about the full battery of the exam and how much it would cost if you just took the 4 subject tests and that would be all you needed, it's $160 total for the in-person test or online. So even if you're doing the online GED from the comfort of your own home, the total cost would also be $160. With HSET, it's a little bit different, and this is a little bit new because HSET is new to the state. So when you're talking about HSET, the in-person testing fee for HSET subject tests is $26.75. And then remember, there are 5 subject tests. So the total for in-person testing is $133.75. However, for the online HSET, which is called the HSET at home, that price comes at a little higher cost because of the proctoring service that they use. And so it's $36.25 per subject test for the online HSET. So when you're talking about the online HSET option, that totals out to $181.25. So when you're talking about in-person testing for HSET, the total cost is a little bit less than the total cost for GED. But when you're talking about the online testing options between HSET and GED, the total cost for the HSET is a little bit higher than the total cost for the online GED. So these are just key differences also, again, when someone is thinking about weighing their options and trying to decide between these 2 options. It's just another factor to want to consider in terms of thinking about the cost of the exams. But the other similarity that we do have for both of these exams is that testing scholarships are available. These are typically offered through local foundations and community organizations. And so if someone was in need of scholarships, they might be able to seek it out for both the HSET or the GED. So those were some of the main differences between the 2 tests. And again, I mentioned this one-pager that everyone's going to have access to. It's available on our website. This is the direct link to that one-pager. It's a really great resource. It has all of the information that I just shared with you. So I just wanted to include the link here as well so that you know where to access it. But of course, I believe this will go out with the webinar, and you can also find the information on our website. So as I mentioned before, I also wanted to take time today to talk about the online testing options for both GED and HSET, because given where we are currently with the pandemic, we do have some testing centers that are still closed. They have limited space availability in their testing centers. And so it's really great to be able to have this online option as well. So I'm going to talk about the online GED test first. We've been able to offer the online GED test since about summer of 2020. And so since then, right now, we're looking at about 19% of our GED graduates in Georgia have been taking the GED test online. And that percentage, we've just seen it slowly increase as time goes on. The online GED test is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you need to schedule it on a weekend, that's definitely a possibility. We think that's a really great flexible option for people who have busy schedules and are just trying to work things in. I've included the direct link to the GED, to the online GED test website, where you can find a lot more information about the online GED test. But some key points to be aware of: if someone is interested in taking the online GED test, there are some things they're going to need. They're going to need to have access to a computer. They need to have access to a webcam and reliable internet. They need to have a private workspace, and they also need to be able to show a government-issued ID. And the GED, the way it works is that there's going to be a proctor who will be observing you taking the test online. And so that's why the webcam's required, and that's why it needs to be a private workspace, because the proctor needs to be able to monitor the testing environment. The additional requirement for the online GED is that you must earn a green on the GED Ready Practice Test score. It must give you the green category within the last 60 days in order to sign up for the online GED test. With the online GED test, you can only schedule one subject test at a time. So it's done by the subject test. You can't go and say, I want to take all 4 subjects at the same time. And then they do not allow handheld calculators or physical scratch paper, but there are calculators and scratch paper embedded within the test on the computer, but you just can't have it in person with you. Now I'm going to play a video that the GED put together about the online GED testing and all the requirements that a test taker would need to know.
Online GED testing. What to expect. Some students may be eligible to take the GED test online at home, while securely monitored by an online proctor. Here's what you'll need to test online successfully. Before your test, make sure you have a quiet private room, a reliable internet connection, a computer with webcam, sound, and microphone, no tablets or phones, and your government-issued ID. It's important to do a system test on your computer before test day. If you wait until the time of your exam to do the system test and something goes wrong, you won't be able to test and will lose your payment. During the system test, you'll download and install the OnView software, which will take you through each step. On test day, log in 30 minutes before your scheduled time. Simply click Launch from the appointment card in your GED account. During this check-in time, you will take photos of yourself, your ID, and your surroundings. Make sure that your workspace is ready without any distractions. And double-check your computer's system for compatibility. Remember, no one else may be in the room while you are testing. There's no scheduled break, and no food or drinks are allowed during online testing, except you can have water in a clear glass at your desk. During the test, you're not allowed to take notes on paper, but you'll have an on-screen calculator and access to an on-screen scratch pad and whiteboard for taking notes and doing math work. Test takers are recorded and monitored during the entire GED test through the webcam and microphone. This is to ensure that everyone follows the online testing rules and has a fair chance to do their best. The online GED test is only available in the U.S. and U.S. territories. Thank you for learning about online GED testing, and good luck on your exam.
So now I want to talk about the online option for the HSET at home exam. So the HSET at home exam is their online option. This first link takes you directly to their website where you can find out more information about the test. It's available from 4 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time, 7 days a week. So it's not 24 hours a day, it's about 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is still pretty good for people trying to find flexible testing times available to them. For the HSET at home online exam, testers would need to have a computer, a webcam, a microphone, and reliable internet. They also need to have a private workspace and a government-issued ID. Very similar to the online GED, this is because it's going to be a proctored test, so the proctor will need to monitor the testing environment for the person taking the test online. They have specified that no headsets are allowed for testers, and so that's just something that I wanted to make sure people were aware of. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, the price for the online HSET at home exam is different than the price for the in-person exam. And so that's just something that someone's going to want to keep in mind when they're thinking about which test they want to take and the different options available to them. They also have a video available talking about the HSET at home exam. So I'm going to click this link and let you guys see the video to talk about the HSET at home exam.
You can now take the HSET exam safely and conveniently from home. It's the same HSET exam that you take at a test center. The only differences are you use your own equipment and you are monitored online by a human proctor. To take the test at home, you will need a desktop or laptop computer. It can be either a PC or a Mac. A camera that can be moved to show the proctor the entire room. A microphone and a speaker. Headsets are not permitted for this test. For more specific details about equipment requirements, visit the HSET Exam at Home website. You will need to download and install the ETS test browser on the computer you will use for the test. To fully install the browser, you must run the file after downloading it. Next, check your equipment by running the Proctor Use System check. This will confirm that your computer, camera, microphone, and speaker meet the requirements for the test. Be sure that your room meets the requirements for testing. For the test, you must be in a room alone, preferably at home. Outdoor and public spaces are not permitted. Your computer must be on a desk or table, and you need to sit in a standard chair. The testing area must be clear of all items not approved for use during the test. Once you confirm that your equipment and testing room will meet the requirements for test day, you are ready to register. To register, log into your HSET account and select Register. On the Choose Test Center location page, select Remote Home Testing. Verify your email address, select your state, then review test policies. Once on the Schedule New Appointment page, you will select your test, date, and time you wish to test. Follow the directions to continue your registration and pay for your test. When you're done, you will receive a confirmation message on screen and by email. Keep this email safe because it contains the link to start your test on test day. Here are some tips to help you get ready for your test. To take notes during the test, you can use a whiteboard or a piece of paper inside a transparent sheet protector with an erasable marker. Don't wear headphones or earphones. Bring a small mirror or your mobile phone for check-in, and have your ID ready to show the proctor. When it's time for your test, log in using the at-home check-in link in your confirmation email or from your HSET account. Be sure to check in within 12 minutes of your scheduled start time, otherwise your test will be canceled. When you start your session, the proctor will walk you through the check-in process. You will need to show your ID and show your computer screen using a small mirror or your mobile phone. Then, you will use your computer camera to show a 360-degree view of the room. During the test, make sure that you can be seen by the proctor at all times. Avoid doing anything that may look suspicious, like talking out loud to yourself or looking away from the screen. At the end of the test session, you'll see your unofficial score. However, you won't get an unofficial score for the Language Arts Writing subtest. Official scores are available 3 to 5 business days after your test in your HSET account. Official scores are automatically sent to the state that will issue your high school equivalency credential. Good luck when you take the HSET exam at home. It's the test that helps you keep your future education plans on track.
All right, So that was everything that I wanted to cover regarding high school equivalency options and the virtual testing options that are currently available. If you need to contact me, again, my name is Rosaline Teo. I work for the Office of Adult Education. I'm including my email address here and my direct phone line. And I'm also including the link again to our website that talks about high school equivalency options. You can find a whole bunch of information here about all of the different options that I covered today. But of course, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.